Hello and welcome to what I read in February of 2023. I read, let's see, 7 books in February. So we are going to go over everything I read and joined by my co-host Phoenix. So the first book I read was And Again by Jessica Chiarella. This is about 4 individuals who are granted the chance to continue their lives in genetically perfect versions of their former bodies. And their lives drastically change. So it goes over each character. There's Hannah, who was a painter. She has to learn a new craft in her new body. David, a congressman who deals with old vices from his past life. There's Connie, who is an actress, and she learns to navigate an industry that's kind of moved on from her look. And then there's Linda, who was previously paralyzed in her old body, and she struggles to reconnect with her family. I give this 4 stars. I really enjoyed this story. I picked this up at the library book sale. The plot overall was interesting. The story was interesting. So it was different from what I expected, and I really enjoyed the book. The only thing that I didn't really care for was there was a relationship between 2 of the characters that I just felt was unnecessary. I don't want to spoil it, but it was, I guess, kind of interesting to see how they changed, but overall, I didn't think it was necessary. But I would suggest reading this. It's definitely not what I thought it was going to be, and it was a pretty good read. Then I read The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. Evelyn Hardcastle will die every day until Aidan Bishop can identify her killer and break the cycle. Aidan wakes up every single day in a different host body, and he learns more clues about who killed her. Every host provides a little bit different. So one of the hosts is like a really large man, but he's very good at observing different characters. Some of the characters, are fast on their feet. Like one of the characters is a detective, so he's able to put some clues together. I give this 3 stars. I wish the story was a bit shorter. It felt very long. Also, there were like unnecessary details sometimes where I was like, we could just really cut this out and get to the meat of the story. I also wish we could have gotten more into why Aidan was stuck in this cycle of going into the different hosts. Kind of got into it, but not all the way. I think the book was an interesting idea. I just didn't really care for the execution of the book all the way. Then I reread Maybe in Another Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid. At 29, Hannah is clueless about what she wants to do with her life. She's lived in 6 different cities. She's held countless different jobs. She decides to go back to her hometown, and she celebrates by going out with her best friend, Gabby. And when her and her friend Gabby go out, they also run into her ex-boyfriend, Ethan. From there, the story kind of splits into different sections. It shows what happens if she goes home with Gabby. It shows what happens if she stays out with Ethan. I really like how the concurrent storylines give you different kind of versions of the character, but ultimately it's the same character. Also really like the execution of it. I gave this book 5 stars. This is my second reread of it, and I loved it again. I love how each story, you can see Hannah in different ways and Gabby in different ways. Both are really well done, and I really enjoy this story and would really recommend it as well. Then I borrowed the next book, and I still have it from my friend, The Guest List by Lucy Foley. This book is about the course of a wedding weekend on a remote island, and many secrets are revealed, and someone is murdered. I actually didn't care for this book. I only gave it 2 stars, and my friend didn't like it either, so I was kind of relieved that she didn't like it either. The writing felt very bad to me. The dialogue was a bit cringy at times. It felt very, maybe like new writer, but I don't think she is a new writer. The way everything tied together was also very unrealistic. I also called a few things that happened in the book that maybe halfway through I was like, oh, that character's this character connected it. So it's kind of transparent to me. The way everything happened kind of was unrealistic. The way everything was tied together just was kind of underwhelming. I would say it is a very quick read, so you can kind of go through it pretty fast. Then I read The Ministry of Ordinary Places, Waking Up to God's Goodness Around You by Shannon Martin. Upon moving to a new city from the countryside, Shannon uncovered a hidden power in neighborhoods. Shows with some scripture, but mainly stories of how we can be simply invested in people around us just by being present. I gave this 5 stars. I really enjoyed this book. It is kind of like a memoir / like self-help almost. I felt moved by the stories that Shannon said. I strive to be a person that's like better connected to my community and involved in my community. I really enjoyed reading this story, and I really liked her writing style as well. I know she's written a few other books, so I'll have to check those out as well. Then I read One Italian Summer by Rebecca Serle. When Katie's mother dies, she's left reeling. Carol was her best friend and seemed to have all the answers. Katie decides to go alone on their planned vacation to a place that Carol spent her youth in Italy. Katie begins to heal and miraculously sees her mom 30 years younger. I gave this book 3 stars. The relationship viewed through the lens of her mom being like the greatest love of her life, which she mentions several times throughout the book. It was kind of like weird because she is married, so having her mom be the greatest love of her life is just kind of a little interesting. Also, she never really makes decisions for herself. She always kind of has her mom kind of make decisions for her. I'm like, okay, you need to grow up a little bit, be a little independent. Another thing that happens in this book, which I guess is a spoiler, so if you plan on reading, you can skip a little bit ahead. She does cheat on her husband for real no reason. Her husband's like a really nice guy. Yeah, it was very interesting how that all planned out. The character didn't really have like redeeming qualities to me, especially when she did that, so it was just kind of, the story fell flat. I did like the scenery descriptions. It's obviously set in Italy, so it really does like transport you to that time and place. And I liked that. But otherwise, maybe not a great book for me. But other reviews online kind of felt the same way I did, so I don't feel too bad saying all that. Then I read Thank You for Listening by Julia Whelan. For Swanee Chester, being an audiobook narrator is a long way from her old dreams, but allows her to take care of her ailing grandmother. She previously narrated romance books, but moved on to a different genre. When an author she worked with for years dies, her wish is for Swanee to record the book with one of the biggest voices in the genre. What happens when their notes to each other allow them to open up? I give this 3 stars. The synopsis I gave is really like the tip of the iceberg. There's so much going on in this book. You have the grandma, you have her relationship with her mom, you have her relationship with her dad, you have her relationship with the love interest, you have her relationship with her best friend, you have her job, you have, it feels like it just keeps going. So it was almost too much to follow. It was like, it just kept piling stuff on. I did enjoy more so the beginning of the book rather than like the middle or the end of the book. But overall, it was an okay read. I guess most people read it, or most people actually listen to it as an audiobook, because the story is about an audiobook narrator, and the person who wrote this previously audiobook narrated. So I guess most people do it that way. So those are all the books I read in February. Let me know if you've read any of these or if you're planning on reading any of these. And always put some recommendations for me down below. March, I already read 1 book so far. And if you have any recommendations for Women's History Month in March, let me know. And I will see you guys next time.